So I was watching MightBeBob, link in description, stream on Twitch the other day, and he was swapping to Frida's Great Scythe as a sort of instant poise option for his dex build, while using an empty offhand so he could immediately use the weapon art. If you've watched Mocha Latte's video, link in description, on swapping to Gundyr's halberd in a similar way to use its weapon art, it's what he calls a kill switch, because you turn it on and somebody dies. So Bob had created his own little dex kill switch, because obviously Gundyr's isn't going to work on a dex build. So I started to wonder, why does Strength get all the good swap options? Leto's, Dragonslayer, Great Axe, Gundyr's, all strength weapons only. And none of these, including Frida's Scythe, are infusible, so what can you use as a quick swap for weapon art on, say, a dark build? Here's my idea, the Millwood Battle Axe. Axes don't get a lot of love in DS3 besides the Dragonslayer's axe at low levels, largely because they're functionally slower straight swords that do a bit more damage. No hyper armor, and a somewhat slow swing speed, is a rough pairing in DS3. The Millwood Axe isn't any exception with the exception of the weapon art, which for some reason gets a very significant amount of poise. How much poise, you might ask? Well, to start, in case you find somebody hiding in Midier's boss room, enough poise to go through their sunlight spear like it's not even there. But for a little bit more quantitative analysis, that stupid looking little stomp run you do gets a whopping 0.25 poise modifier. This is a useless number, I'll acknowledge, until you understand that curved greatsword R1s have a 0.242 poise modifier. Additionally, the weapon art resets your poise health to 100. In short, everything you can go through with a curved great R1 at max poise health, you can go through with the L2 on the Millwood. With this in mind, I would like to officially dub the Millwood Axe the Mill Switch. Somebody just rolling, pull out that mill switch and grind them into flour. Wow, that was a bad pun. I should probably have taken that one out, or maybe just deleted my channel. I don't know, hard to say. Horrifically lame jokes aside, I chose to pair the Millwood Axe as my swap option with my typical Harald and hand axe setup. I have a Harald curved greatsword in the right hand slot 1, a cestus in the right hand slot 2, an empty left hand slot 1, and a hand axe in left hand slot 2. With the Millwood Axe directly below the Harald in my inventory, it's a single swap away. My left hand is obviously empty, so I have instant access to the weapon art even one-handed, and I slotted a cestus in the second slot of my right hand so I can toggle to it for instant access to Perseverance. Because again, I can use weapon arts one-handed, and it's the lightest weapon with Perseverance in the game. My other offhand is a hand axe because, well, I love the hand axe, absolute roll catch beast that is a perfect complement to the damage output and hyper armor of the Harald. The main tactic for this build is to mostly rely on the Harald as your bread and butter weapon. At an absolute monstrosity in terms of AR, this thing has disgusting R1 damage and solid running R1s to pressure a passive party. Not to mention that R1 jump attack is a true combo on this thing for even more damage. Obviously it requires you to hit confirm the R1, but it's ideal for punishing Estus. Now, I want to compare the Millwood Axe L2 to Gundyr's charge on a strength build, because, let's be real, there's no reason you couldn't just make this a strength build with a heavy Harald for a little bit less damage unbuffed and no chip damage and just swap to Gundyr's instead. And to be honest, I'm pretty sure that Gundyr's charge is close to a straight upgrade on the Millwood L2. It hits more consistently, does more damage, and typically knocks down your opponent to put them in a position where you can weapon art them again. And the only real advantage that Millwood has over Gundyr's is that it is unparryable because, you know, it doesn't do any damage on that little stomp run thing, only hit stun. But that can even be pretty much avoided by free aiming with Gundyr's halberd's charge. But this doesn't mean it isn't a good option for dark builds. Even if it doesn't knock down your opponent and requires you to be right on their nuts in order for the wonky stomp thing to combo into an R1, it's still a really solid chase down option nonetheless. A side effect of the wonky stomp thing is that it's technically a Warcry weapon art, meaning that it buffs your AR. So even if you're chasing someone with low health and it doesn't combo into an R1, you can punish their Estus quite effectively and then use the weapon art again to continue the chase down, as they'll be on low health again after you punish them. As long as they don't avoid completely being staggered by the wonky run that looks like your character's about to shit their pants, they're going to likely take some level of damage from it unless they can force you off of them, which is hard to do when your L2 has that much poise. Oh, and a nice little benefit of the offhand hand axe for this setup is that the L2 of the hand axe combos into the R1 of the Millwood Axe, just to squeeze a little extra damage out of your true combo if you want to stick with the Millwood Axe as your actual main hand for a while. The main downside I've found to this setup is that you don't have any soft swap access to a parry tool. While you shouldn't rely on parries as your only plan to win, because that basically means that a smart, cautious player will recognize that as your entire game plan, play around it, and straight whip your ass 9 times out of 10, there are players out there who have similarly simple game plans using weapons that, when not cautiously used, get completely destroyed by parries. So, if you encounter these players, you're not going to have immediate access to that very useful tool. Then again, if you're comfortable or trying to become comfortable with hard swaps to the level that you can swap to the Millwood Axe on the fly, you should also be comfortable enough to refactor your setup in such a way that you do have a parry tool available offhand. If you're not comfortable with hard swaps, but still want to try out the Millwood Axe as an instant chasedown option, I'd suggest leveling Vitality a bit more or wearing slightly lighter armor, and switching the Cestus in the setup I described earlier for a Millwood Axe. Then you can still have an empty offhand, but instead of hard swapping to the Millwood, you can just soft swap instead for a similar result. All you'll lose out on is a bit of armor if you don't choose to level Vitality, and a loss of access to instant Perseverance. This next clip serves 3 purposes. First, to provide an example of how, despite the weapon art not comboing into an R1, you can punish someone who chugs while panicking and on low health and weapon art again. Second, to illustrate my submission to Sunlight Blade for top 10 plunge attacks, though it would have been way cooler if I hadn't fucked up the ring swap. And third, to show you all that the hard swap can totally work the other way around as well. Sever, the Harald's weapon art, is one of the most damaging true combos in the game. So if somebody is a little too eager to parry your parryable Axe R1s, or is a little too eager to challenge your Millwood Axe because Axe R1s don't have hyper armor and all that, you can swap the other way around and sever their ass, because Sever is both unparryable and has lots of hyper armor. Doesn't actually work for me in this clip, but you know, proof of concept and all that. Otherwise, the clip is pretty unremarkable. Phantom dies really quickly once he's alone. Took me for fucking ever to find the host, and he died very quickly once I did. Just another Tuesday evening in Lothric. The usual. Alright, I'm pretty much out of technical things to say about this build. My script has run its course, so the only other final thing I would like to say about this build is that, honestly, it has been a ton of fun. I've only really used it for one night properly. All the clips that you've seen so far have all come from a single night of invading, like 3 hours. But honestly, I'd just like to say that it has been an absolute blast. I love this build. It's a ton of fun. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's definitely less effective than like Gundyr's or something, but there's something I find incredibly charming about that stupid little run that you do when you pull out the Millwood Axe and do a weapon art. And I think another merit of this build is that because I don't think I've ever seen anyone hard swap to the Millwood Axe just for the weapon art before, people don't really know how to handle it yet. I mean, it probably isn't that hard to handle. It's not that great. It's surely easier to handle than Gundyr's, but people haven't quite figured out how yet, it seems like. So, anyway, yeah, it's just been a blast, and it's been pretty effective, so I don't know. I've had a great time with it. Probably the most fun I've had with any sort of build in 2020. So, normally when I find clips for DS3 YouTube footage or whatever, I have to, like, you know, I get some clips that I'm like, yeah, I would really like to clip these regardless of whether I was a YouTuber or not. But then I also have to like shoehorn in some clips that I'm like not super happy with, or I have to search for like specific footage. But honestly, this build, just like, I was clipping things left and right. I was having so much fun out there. It was a blast. So anyway, just a reminder that DS3 can still be fun in 2020, y'all. This game is still a blast when you do it right. So anyway, with that being said, this final invasion here, little bit of backstory, not really a backstory per se, but just to give the gankers their due credit, they did kill me once. I messed up my ring swap as I rolled off an edge and then didn't roll cancel my recovery frames from the fall. But, so yeah, they got me once, but anyway, I got back in and got some help from a really, really good co-innovator friend of mine. And, yeah, just had a great old time. Anyway, that's about all I have to say, really. I'll let the rest of the invasion play out as is. Everybody keep it silly. Hope you're all staying safe. Sir, welcome to Silly Dog's authentic Lothric restaurant. We offer the finest in Lothric cuisine that you will find in the entirety of the Ring City. However, we do have a policy that many people don't like. There is no drinking allowed! Sir, I swear, don't try and chug again. Don't you dare try and chug it. Sir! Sir! No drinking allowed! Goodness gracious, the delinquents you get in here nowadays. This industry has fallen apart.